children, I'm back again with my next video on the new chapter named In the Kingdom of Fools. Children, you might have heard many idioms on fools like a fool and money are soon parted, a fool's paradise, act the fool, and so on. This chapter in the Kingdom of Fools is a folk tale. What do you mean by a folk tale? It is a traditional story which is passed on from one generation to another. Okay, it's a legend, it's a traditional stories. Folk tales are nothing but traditional stories. Fine. And then again, people inculcate the habit or practice of transmitting it orally from one generation to another. This story is written by A.K. Ramanujan. Attipat Krishnaswamy Ramanujan. He was a poet, translator, and folklorist. What do you mean by folklorist? It's a traditional beliefs, myth, and practices of people transmitting the stories orally. That is, as I told you, it is transmitted from one generation to the next. So Attipat Krishnaswamy Ramanujan was born in Mysore, Karnataka, to a Brahmin family that loved and encouraged learning. So let's begin with this story. In the Kingdom of Fools, it is believed that fools are so dangerous that only very wise people can manage them. Who are the fools in this story? What happens to them? Let's begin. In the Kingdom of Fools, both the king and the ministers were idiots. Idiots means you're stupid, fools. They did not want to run things like other kings. So they decided to change night into day and day into night. Isn't it amazing? They ordered that everyone should be awake at night, till their fields and run their business only after dark, and go to bed as soon as the sun came up. Anyone who disobeyed would be punished with death. The people did as they were told for the fear of death. The king and the minister were delighted at the success of their project. So what is the project here? That they are going to sleep during day and work. They are going to work at night and sleep during daytime. And if anybody disobeyed or disregarded the orders by the king will be punished. So this was the project. One day a guru and his disciple, who is a disciple, is a follower, arrived in the city. It was a beautiful city. It was broad daylight, but there was no one about. Everyone was asleep, not a mouse stirring. Even the cattle had been taught to sleep by day. So the cattle was even trained to sleep by day. Just imagine, my dear children. The two strangers were amazed by what they saw around them and wandered around town till evening, when suddenly the whole town woke up and went about its nightly business. The two men were hungry. Who were the two men? The disciple and his guru. Now that the shops were open, they went to buy some groceries. To their astonishment means surprise, amazement. They found that everything cost the same. That is a single dadu. Dadu means paisa. Okay? Whether they bought a measure of rice or a bunch of bananas. Everything cost a dadu. Everything cost one paisa. The guru and his disciple were delighted. They were very excited to find this. They had never heard of anything like this. They could buy all the food they wanted for a rupee, just a rupee. So the whole story revolves around the kingdom where, king along with his minister resided, and they were nothing but they were considered to be idiots, that is stupid. Isn't it? You can just see the whole phenomenon has been changed over here. They decided that people are going to work at night and sleep during daytime. When they had cooked and eaten, the Guru realized that this was a kingdom of fools and it wouldn't be a good idea for them to stay there. Now, you can just imagine what was the reason that Guru decided that they are not going to stay there in this kingdom of fools any longer. Because, fools may appear to be fools to us, but they may sometimes be very dangerous even. So there is no place for us, he says. Let's go. This is not a suitable place for us, Guru says to his disciple. But the disciple didn't want to leave the place because everything was cheap there. Everything could be bought only for a dadu. Everything was cheap. All he cheap means it was only available for one dadu, isn't it? It was not that expensive. It wasn't expensive at all. So everything had same price. All he wanted was good cheap food. The Guru said, they are all fools. This won't last very long. And you cannot tell what they will do to you next. After all, they are fools and we are living in the fool's kingdom right now. But the disciple wouldn't listen to the Guru's wisdom. He wanted to stay. The Guru finally gave up and said, do what you want. I am going, and left. The disciple stayed on, ate his fill every day, ate his part of meal every day, bananas and ghee and rice and wheat, and grew fat like street side sacred bull. Sacred means holy. Okay, so you can just see he has been compared here to a sacred bull. How he grew up? He just grew fat like a street side sacred bull. So it means he became obese, he became fat. One bright day, a thief broke into a merchant's house. He had made a hole in the wall and sneaked in. Sneaked in means to move in stealthily, okay, quietly, in a sneaky manner. And as he was carrying out his loot, the wall of the old house collapsed. It had broken. It fell down on his head and killed him on the spot. His brother ran to the king and complained, Your Highness, when my brother was pursuing his ancient trade, a wall fell on him and killed him. The merchant is to be blamed for that. He should have built a good, strong wall. You must punish the wrongdoer and compensate. Compensate means to give something in lieu of something else, okay? Compensate the family for this injustice done to him. The king said, Justice will be done, don't worry. And at once summoned. Summoned means called. Called the owner of the house. When the merchant arrived, the king questioned him, What's your name? Such and such, your highness. Were you at home when the dead man burgled your house? Robbed your house. Burgled means robbed your house. Yes, my lord, he broke in. That is, he sneaked in. And the wall was weak. It fell on him. The accused pleads guilty. Your wall killed the man's brother. You have murdered a man. We have to punish you. Lord, said the helpless merchant, I didn't put up the wall. It's really the fault of the man who built the wall. He didn't build it right. You should punish him. Who is that? My lord, this wall was built in my father's time. I know the man. He's an old man now. He lives nearby. The king sent out messengers to bring in the bricklayer who had built the wall. They brought him, tied hand and foot. You there, did you build this man's wall in the father's time? Yes, my lord, I did. What kind of a wall is this that you built? It has fallen on a poor man and killed him. You have murdered him. You can see how this man was alleged for the crime that he did not do. Can you just imagine? Just because the wall was weak, it fell on the robber who was actually burgling the house, okay, who sneaked into the house. And then again, the entire blame was put on this poor mason who built the wall, even not on him but on his father who is dead. Before the king could order the execution, the poor bricklayer pleaded. He just urged, pleaded, requested, please listen to me before you give your orders. It's true I built this wall and it was no good, but this was because my mind was not on it. I remember very well a dancing girl who was going up and down the street all day and her anklets jingling, and I couldn't keep my eyes on or my mind on the wall I was building, so I couldn't concentrate. He just tried to allege this dancing girl. So, my dear children, what we do the same. When we commit a mistake, we allege, we blame others for our mistake. Just because this was the reason, just because of you, I have done so and so. So, we mustn't do that, isn't it? We must realize if we have committed mistakes, after all, we are human beings. And if we have committed mistakes, we should try to rectify it, isn't it? We should try to improve, we should try to work on our mistakes, isn't it, rather blaming others for our misdeeds, okay, or for our ill actions. You must get the dancing girl. I know where she lives. You are right. The case deepens now. We must look into it. Look into it means investigate into it. Investigate, okay, about the case. It's not easy to judge such complicated cases. Let's get the dancer, wherever she is. The dancing girl, now an old woman, who had now turned into an old woman, came trembling, shivering to the court. Did you walk up and down that street many years ago while the poor man was building a wall? Did you see him? Yes, my lord, I remember it very well. So you did walk up and down with your anklets jingling. You were young and you distracted him. So he built a bad wall. That is the reason. It has fallen on a poor burglar and killed him. See, how can a burglar be poor, my dear children? Isn't it ironic? Isn't it? You have killed an innocent man. My goodness, you see, my dear children, how can the man who is burgling, who is trying to sneak into the house, who is trying to rob the house, can be a can be an innocent one? You will have to be punished. She thought for a minute and said, my lord, wait. I know now why I was walking up and down the street. I had given some gold to the goldsmith to make some jewelry for me. He was a lazy scoundrel. He made so many excuses. Said he would give it now and he would give it then, and so on all day. He made me walk up and down to his house a dozen times. That was when this bricklayer saw me. It's not my fault, my lord. It's the damn goldsmith's fault. Poor thing, she's absolutely right, thought the king, weighing the evidence. We have got the real culprit at last. Get the goldsmith, wherever he is hiding, at once. The king's bailiffs, bailiffs means soldiers, searched for the goldsmith who was hiding in a corner of his shop. When he heard the accusation, that is he is being alleged for the crime which hasn't done, okay, against him, he said his own story to he has had his own story to tell. My lord, he said, I am a poor goldsmith. It's true, I made this dancer come many times to my door. I gave her excuses because I couldn't finish making her jewelry before I finished the rich merchant's orders. They had a wedding coming and they wouldn't wait. You know how impatient rich men are? Who is this rich merchant who kept you from finishing this poor woman's jewelry, made her walk up and down, which distracted this bricklayer, which made a mess of his wall, which has now fallen on an innocent man and killed him? Can you name him? The goldsmith named the merchant, and he was none other than the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. Now justice had come full circle, thought the king. Back to the merchant. when he was rudely summoned means called, back to the court, he arrived crying. It wasn't me, but my father who ordered the jewelry. He's dead. I'm innocent. But the king consulted his minister and ruled decisively. It's true your father is the true murderer. He is dead. But somebody must be punished in his place. You have inherited everything. You have inherited means you are his heir now. Okay, you have taken over his wealth and everything from that criminal father of yours. His riches here means wealth, as well as his sins. I knew at once, even when I first set eyes on you, that you were at the root of this horrible crime. You must die, the king says. And he ordered a new stake to be made ready for the execution. Now, finally, this merchant would be punished, and the stake was made ready. Stake is, a proper place where the criminals are hung, okay, and they are given punishment. As the servants sharpened the stake and got it ready for the final impaling of the criminal, it occurred to the minister that the rich servant was somehow too thin to be properly executed on the stake. Now, finally, when he was about to be given punishment, final impaling of the criminal, okay, he appealed to the king's common sense. The king too worried about it. Oh my God, now the merchant is very thin. What should be done? How he should be given punishment? What shall we do? He said, when suddenly it struck him that all they needed to do was to find a man fat enough to fit the stake. The servants were immediately sent all over the town hunting for a man who would fit the stake, and their eyes fell on the disciple who had fattened himself for months on bananas and rice and wheat and ghee. What have I done wrong? I am innocent. I am a sannyasi, he cried. That may be true, but it is the royal decree. It is the royal order that we should find a man fat enough to fit the stake, they said, and carried him to the place of execution. He remembered his wise guru's words. This is a city of fools. You don't know what they will do next. While he was waiting for death, he prayed to his guru in his heart, asking him to hear his cry wherever he was. The guru saw everything in a vision. He had magic powers. He could see far, and he could see the future as he could see the present and the past. He arrived at once to save his disciple, who had got himself into such a scrape, such a misery through love of food, just because of his greed. As soon as he arrived, he scolded the disciple and told him something in a whisper. Then he went to the king and addressed him, O wisest of kings, who is greater, the guru or the disciple? Of course the guru, no doubt about it. Why do you ask? Then put me to the stake first. Put my disciple to death after me. When king listened to this, he was quite surprised. When the disciple heard this, he understood and began to clamor, began to create din, produce noise, shout, Me first! You brought me here first! Put me to death first, not him! The guru and the disciple now got into a fight about who should go first. The king was puzzled. The king was confused. He was baffled by this behavior. He asked the guru, Why do you want to die? We chose him because we needed a fat man for the stake. You can just see stake over here, isn't it? You shouldn't ask me such questions. Put me to death first, replied the guru. Why? There is some mystery here. As a wise man, you must make me understand. Will you promise to put me to death if I tell you? Asked the guru. The king gave him his solemn word, his solemn promise. The guru took him aside out of the servant's earshot and whispered to him, Do you know why we want to die right now, the two of us? We have been all over the world, but we have never found a city like this or a king like you. That stake is the stake of the God of justice. So this is how he started, manipulating the king. It's new. It has never had a criminal on it. Whoever dies on it first will be reborn as the king of this country. And whoever goes next will be the future minister of this country. We are sick of our ascetic life. Ascetic means holy life. It would be nice to enjoy ourselves as king and minister for a while. Now keep your word, now keep your promise, as you said, the Guru said to the king. My lord, and put us to death. Me first, remember. The king was now thrown into deep thought. He didn't want to lose the kingdom to someone else in the next round of life. He needed time. So he heard the execution postponed to the next day and talked in a secret with his minister. It's not right for us to give over the kingdom to others in the next life. Let us go on the stake ourselves and will be reborn as king and minister again. Holy men do not tell lies, he said. And the minister agreed. So he told the executioners, we will send the criminals tonight. When the first man comes to you, put him to death first. Then do the same to the second man. Those were my orders. Those are my orders, he says. Do not make any mistake. That night, the king and the minister went secretly to the prison, released the guru and the disciple, disguised themselves as the two, and as arranged beforehand with loyal servants, were taken to the stake and promptly executed. Isn't it? The whole story revolves around the fool's kingdom and these idiot minister and the king residing over them. There, how the thing changes, how the guru, the guru uses his intellect and wit in order to save his disciple. When the bodies were taken down to be thrown to crows and vultures, the people panicked. They saw before them the dead bodies of king and the minister. The city was in confusion. All night they mourned, they cried and discussed the future of the kingdom. Some people suddenly thought of the guru and the disciple and caught up with them as they were preparing to leave town unnoticed. We people need a king and a minister, said some. Others agreed. They begged the guru and the disciple to be their king and the minister. It didn't take many arguments to pursue the disciple, but it took longer to pursue the guru. After all, guru is guru, isn't it? He was a man full of wisdom. Okay, he was a holy person. He was an ascetic. They finally agreed to rule the kingdom of the foolish king and the silly minister on the condition that they could change all the old laws. Finally, with the great intellect and wit of the guru, the entire thing, the old laws were changed. They adopted to the normal life, like they will be working during the daytime and will be sleeping at night. Since nights are meant for sleeping and days are meant for working, isn't it? So this is a natural phenomenon that we follow. From then on, night would again be night and day would again be day, and you could get nothing for a dado. It became like any of the other days. So what have we learned from this story? Yes, my dear children, can you tell me what have we learned? We have learned few things from here. First, we must always listen to our elders. Experience teaches us many things. So since they are experienced than us, more experienced than us, isn't it? So we must always listen to them. Second, we must not be greedy. Greediness leads us to nothing, isn't it? We must be contented and must be thankful to God for whatever we have. Thank you. I hope you have understood the chapter.